Labour's new poll lead exposes how much damage Keir Starmer was doing. Starmer dragged Labour down. Burnham has lifted it, for now. Labour's sudden return to the top of one national poll looks like a recovery, but the deeper message is more brutal. Changing the Prime Minister has temporarily changed how voters see the same governing party. For the first time since March 2025, a major voting intention poll has placed Labour clearly ahead of Reform UK. More in Common survey, conducted between 24 and the 27th of July, put Labour on 28%, Reform on 24%, and the Conservatives on 22%. Labour had risen 4 points, while Reform had fallen, and the Greens had dropped to 8%. That is a meaningful movement. It is not yet a settled realignment. A separate YouGov poll, conducted on 26 and the 27th of July, placed Labour and Reform level on 22%, with the Conservatives just 1 point behind. 1 week earlier, YouGov had Labour on only 20% and Reform on 23%. The fairest conclusion is therefore not that Labour has decisively defeated Reform. It is that Labour has recovered enough to re-enter the contest, and that removing Keir Starmer has immediately improved the party's political position. The bounce is real, but it is not yet a trend. One poll can exaggerate movement through sampling variation, methodological differences, or short-lived public emotion. 2 polls showing Labour improving are harder to dismiss. More in Common records a 4-point Labour lead. YouGov records a tie. Both are better for Labour than the position it occupied under Starmer only weeks earlier, when Reform regularly led, and Labour appeared trapped around or below 20%. The change is therefore real in direction, even if its precise size remains uncertain. Labour is no longer obviously third or drifting towards irrelevance. It has returned to a crowded 3-party contest in which Labour, Reform, and the Conservatives can all plausibly claim a route to first place. But the fragmentation remains extraordinary. Even in Labour's strongest new result, 72% of voters chose another party. In the YouGov poll, Labour led nobody at all. It was tied with Reform, and only 1 point ahead of the Conservatives. YouGov.com. This is not the restoration of Blair-era dominance. It is a temporary advantage inside a fractured electorate. The first cause is simple. Starmer has gone. The sharpest anti-Starmer interpretation is also the most obvious. Labour has not undergone an ideological transformation. It has not replaced its parliamentary party, rewritten its manifesto, or solved Britain's structural economic problems. It has replaced the man at the top. Starmer left office after a premiership defined by collapsing approval, internal Labour panic, disastrous local election results, and the steady rise of Reform UK. An opinion poll conducted as he prepared to leave found that nearly 7% in 10 voters believed his government had not been a success, while almost half said their opinion of him had worsened during his time in power. That deterioration mattered because Starmer had become more than an unpopular leader. He had become the public symbol of a government that appeared cautious without being competent, punitive without being effective, and managerial without providing visible improvement. Labour's losses were therefore not solely about policy. They were about political atmosphere. Starmer projected procedure when voters wanted direction. He offered institutional seriousness, while the public experienced stagnant services, high living costs, cultural division, and a government that frequently appeared frightened of its own majority. The speed of Labour's improvement, after his departure, suggests that he was not merely caught inside the party's crisis. He was intensifying it. The earlier warning signs were visible in Labour's post-election collapse under Starmer, when poor polling and internal fear began reinforcing one another. The local elections then transformed private anxiety into a survival calculation, as examined in the Civil War triggered by Labour's electoral losses. Burnham has interrupted that cycle. He has not yet proved he can reverse it permanently. Burnham offers everything Starmer did not. Andy Burnham's early advantage is not ideological purity. It is political contrast. Starmer often sounded like a lawyer explaining why action had to remain limited. Burnham sounds like a politician trying to create permission to act. Starmer's authority depended on discipline, distance, and control. Burnham's appeal is built around emotional recognition, regional identity, and visible intervention. That distinction matters in a country where many voters feel that Westminster no longer understands their daily experience. Burnham's early favorability figures demonstrate the opportunity. YouGov found that 38% viewed him favorably and 35% unfavorably, giving him a small positive net rating. That was 12 points better than his rating at the start of the previous week, and stronger than the opening ratings recorded by Starmer, Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, or Liz Truss when they became Prime Minister. Burnham also benefits from something Starmer had largely lost: uncertainty. A quarter of voters had not yet formed a firm opinion of him. That gives a new leader room to define himself before opponents do it for him. Starmer no longer possessed that luxury. By the end, the public's judgment was not incomplete. It had hardened. The first week was designed to produce a bounce. Burnham's early policy activity has also helped. His government moved quickly to emphasize household and community-facing measures, including an energy bill tax reduction and a 20% cut in business rates for pubs, social clubs, and live music venues. The latter announcement was publicly welcomed by local authorities because it targeted institutions facing visible pressure on British high streets. The political logic is obvious. Pubs, buses, energy bills, and social care are tangible. They allow a government to speak in the language of recognizable daily life, rather than distant spending frameworks, administrative reviews, and departmental targets. Burnham has also projected greater movement through media visibility, international engagement, and his willingness to discuss cross-party social care reform. None of this proves that the policies will succeed. It does show that Burnham understands a central weakness of the Starmer period. Voters rarely reward government activity they cannot see, explain, or feel. The early bounce is partly a reward for appearing active. Reform has also helped Labour. Labour's rise cannot be explained entirely by Burnham. Reform's difficulties matter too. Nigel Farage's latest YouGov favorability rating was exceptionally poor, 22% favorable and 68% unfavorable, producing a net score of -46. YouGov described it as the joint lowest figure recorded in the 10 years of its tracker. That creates a significant ceiling. Reform can lead a fragmented voting intention poll, while Farage remains intensely unpopular because its support is concentrated among angry and motivated voters. But converting protest into durable national power requires broader acceptance. Recent controversy around Farage's financial interests, donor relationships, and decision to trigger another Clacton contest has given opponents an opening to present reform as unstable, personality-driven, and less anti-establishment than it claims. Some voters may therefore be moving to Labour because Burnham attracts them. Others may simply be stepping back from reform. Those are not the same thing. The first creates loyalty. The second creates temporary refuge. Labour is winning back the left before winning back Britain. The poll movement suggests that part of Labour's recovery has come from squeezing the Greens and Liberal Democrats. In the More in Common poll, the Greens fell to 8%, while Labour rose to 28%. Reporting around the result also suggests Labour has improved among younger voters and benefited from progressive voters consolidating behind Burnham. This makes sense. Starmer alienated sections of the Labour left without becoming genuinely attractive to many culturally conservative or economically frustrated voters. Burnham can initially reverse the first half of that problem simply by sounding more recognizably Labour. But reclaiming green-leaning progressives is easier than defeating reform. The voters Labour needs to win next are not merely people who disliked Starmer's tone. They include former Labour voters who believe the party abandoned them on immigration, national identity, crime, welfare, and the economic decline of post-industrial communities. Burnham's northern identity may help him communicate with those voters. It does not automatically mean they will trust his government. Can the bounce last? It can last, but only if Burnham converts personal contrast into measurable results. At present, Labour's recovery rests on 5 favorable conditions. Burnham is new. Starmer is gone. Reform is under pressure. Labour's smaller progressive rivals are being squeezed. The government has announced popular, visible measures before their costs and trade-offs become dominant. Every one of those conditions can weaken. New leaders become ordinary. Policy announcements become delivery tests. Spending promises collide with treasury limits. Cross-party social care language becomes a fight over taxation. Media warmth turns into scrutiny. Burnham has ruled out an early general election and committed himself to governing under Labour's existing 2024 mandate. That protects him from the immediate risk of asking voters for personal legitimacy, but it also means he may have nearly 3 years in which every difficult decision can erode the freshness now supporting him. The fiscal constraint is especially dangerous. A government can cut energy costs, support hospitality, and reform social care only by finding money, cutting elsewhere, borrowing more, or raising revenue. Burnham can delay that arithmetic during a political honeymoon. He cannot abolish it. The reform threat has not disappeared. The most dangerous Labour mistake would be treating one poll lead as proof that reform has peaked. YouGov still places the two parties level. Reform remains capable of dominating the political agenda on immigration, cultural identity, and anti-establishment anger. It also retains a more consolidated emotional message than Labour. The country is failing because the governing system is failing. Labour's message is currently more optimistic, but less settled. Burnham is effectively asking voters to believe that the system can still work under better leadership. Farage is asking them to believe the system itself must be broken. The next phase will be decided by events. If living standards improve, public services stabilize, and Burnham appears to act where Starmer hesitated, Labour can extend the bounce. If the government becomes trapped in tax disputes, migration crises, NHS deterioration, or internal Labour warfare, reform's argument will recover quickly. The current contest is therefore not between a restored Labour Party and a defeated Reform UK. It is between Burnham's promise of energetic repair and Farage's promise of political rupture. Starmer's final legacy may be the bounce he never had. The cruelest judgment on Starmer may be that Labour did not need an economic miracle to improve. It needed his absence. Burnham's rise was previously mapped through the parliamentary route created by his Makerfield victory and the leadership earthquake that followed his return to Westminster. What looked then like a threat to Starmer has now become an experiment in whether Labour's decline was fundamentally about leadership or something deeper. The first evidence points heavily towards leadership, but it does not absolve the party. Starmer damaged Labour by making it look emotionally empty and politically paralyzed. Burnham has improved Labour by providing movement, voice, and contrast. That can produce a poll bounce. Sustaining it requires something harder, proving that the new style represents a new government rather than warmer language wrapped around the same constraints. Labour is back in the race. It has not yet escaped the reasons it fell behind.